everybody, thanks for tuning in for another fun Friday video. This week's is going to be FAQ Friday, with the subject being how I got my start in theater and how other people can kind of go into theater as well. Now, I'm apologizing in advance that this video is being posted so late. It's actually 8:15 in the morning on Friday right now. And I have day work at Motown tonight, and then I have a show tonight after that. So, recording this now, and I'm going to start editing it before I go to work. I'm going to be finishing it when I get home from work. So, it's not going to be posted until really late. So, I really apologize for all of that, you guys. I'm sorry. That's called Bobby ventilated and dyed and styled a wig all day yesterday. By the time I realized I didn't make a video, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I had to go to bed so I could get up to do the video, and I try to make this short and sweet and easy and quick so that I can edit it later and not have a crazy problem or take forever, which sometimes these videos can take. I get asked a lot about how I got started in theater and how other people that are out there as hairdressers right now can move into more of a theater thing. And I have to say that the number one thing you need is coffee. You can tell that I made coffee yesterday if I'm drinking iced coffee versus hot coffee. Okay, so for me, doing hair and wigs for theater kind of just came naturally to me. I always had an interest in theater and musicals and Broadway when I was little. And when I was 11, I started taking acting, singing, and dancing classes. And I kept up with those until I was in senior in high school. Doing the hair and the makeup for the shows that I was in just because it was fun, and I had dolls like Barbie and American Girl growing up, and then I graduated into like Barbie heads, and then eventually my mother and I found that you could buy the mannequin heads with the hair on them at Sally Beauty, so we went and started buying those, and I had tons of mannequins. I would braid them, I'd finger wave them, I'd curl them, I'd blow them out, I'd try to bleach them, I'd melt all the hair off of them. When I was a senior in high school, I decided that I was going to be a musical theater major in college. Had I known then that you could go to school for wigs and makeup, I probably would have had that as my second choice. My coffee's done, it's dinging. Had I known that they had a hair and wig major at CCM and at North Carolina and at a couple other schools there are around the country, had I known that, had that be my second choice, or I would have just gone to school for that to begin with. But since I was so focused on performing and being a Broadway star and all of that crap, I went to school for musical theater. And when I was in college, I started working in the costume shop as an apprentice, which basically means it was work study. And I was like my second or third day, they were like, can anybody wash this wig out for us? It's like, we sprayed it green and we need to wash it out. And I'm like, okay. So I took it and I washed it. The supervisor was so impressed with the fact that I washed all this green hairspray out of a wig. I don't know. She's great. I love her. Her name's Joan. She's amazing. Joan was like amazed that I was able to get all this hairspray, like this green hairspray out of this wig. So she had me help. They were doing Little Women. They had me help with the hair for Little Women. And I ended up like doing a wig for it and making all these pieces. And like, it was kind of nuts. It was like it was like 2 weeks into college and I'm already like doing wigs for a show. I was like, craziness. So by the time I graduated, I did about 12 different shows, did the hair and the makeup for at my college. And then I also interned at a theater company called Pittsburgh Civic Light Opera, where I was the intern in the hair department for a summer. And now all of the kids that were in the ensemble that season are now on Broadway, so I get to see them all the time and work with them and kind of catch up. And some of them I haven't seen since 2008 when we did the internship together, and it's like really cool that it's come full circle and I get to see these people. After I graduated college, I moved to New York to go to beauty school because I knew that from being in Pittsburgh, that's a big touring city and lots of local hairdressers there, I knew that you had to be licensed to join the union so that you could be a local and you could work on Broadway or on a tour or something. So I was like, okay, let me go to beauty school when I moved to New York. Perfect, done. You have to be union to work on Broadway and to swing, but at the same time you don't. Like, I know several people that work on Broadway full time that aren't in the union yet. And I know several people that work on Broadway full time that aren't in the union and aren't hairdressers. So it's really weird. There's loopholes around it. You used to not have to be licensed to join the union. So there's many old school members that have been in for about 10 or 15 years that are really talented at what they do, and they're amazing wig stylists, but they're not licensed. So they're already in, they're grandfathered in, so they're there. But to become a new member, to be licensed as a hairdresser, there are kind of ways around it. For the most part, 9.99999 times out of 10, you have to be licensed. I sound like a crazy person right now. My voice is all hoarse. I'm not awake. It's before 9 o'clock on a Friday. I've been up since 7:30. Like, I'm nuts right now. That's my story of how I started doing wigs for theater and Broadway and everything. So now I'm going to kind of talk about how you guys can kind of make a step in that direction and to think if maybe it's right for you or not. A lot of people think that doing hair on Broadway means that you just go there and you like put the wigs on the people and you go home. And that's not what it's like at all. Besides wardrobe, the hair department is probably in the building the longest of any other department in the building. Wardrobe's there, of course, to do laundry and to iron and steam and do everything. And they start at like 9 o'clock. And hair usually comes in about 2 hours before the show or 10 o'clock in the morning like me today to do a work call. Okay, so before I tell you guys how to like get a job in theater, I kind of have to explain what you actually do when you're in theater, because I think that a lot of you guys think that it's something that it's totally not. And I think that if I explain better what we actually do, more of you will kind of realize, oh, maybe I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound really fun. So be a hairdresser for Broadway or film or anything like that, you really need to be up on your styling game. You need to know roller sets. You need to know direction. You need to know how to tease. You need to know period styling. You need to know how to do a bubble to finger waves to, you know, anything current like beach waves, everything. You need to be current, yet you need to have that old-fashioned basis to your techniques. You also have to know how to be self-sufficient. Many Broadway shows have one hairdresser, two hairdressers, and you're independent of each other. So you're on stage left, she's on stage right, you're doing your changes by yourself. But if you're not an independent person and you're not really quick to learn things, you can be in trouble because you get 3 chances. You get to watch, you get to do it, and then you're trained. And the next time you come in, you have to do it completely by yourself with nobody there next to you. So you have to be able to pick stuff up really quickly and retain information. You also need to know how to take notes and how to make notes that you can comprehend and you can pick up later. Personally, I like to take notes down to the smallest detail as to where to place a wig on a counter, where to put pins in somebody's wig, when to change a basket, stuff like that. Because if I don't go into a show for 2 or 3 months and I come back and I have to look at my sheet and I don't remember where I'm going anymore, I want to be able to look at that sheet and be like, oh, okay, well, I have to put Sarah's second wig on here and I have to put 15 pins in it, and I take her other wig off and I have to put it in this basket, and then that basket has to go downstairs and put in a cubby hole for someone else to grab later. So I personally, like I said, like to take copious notes so I can come back months later and still run the track without having to ask any questions or anything like that. Everybody thinks that when you work on Broadway as a hairdresser, you go to work, you put the wigs on the people, and you go home. And that's not how it works. I've never heard of a show where that happens. I can't imagine how that would work because you put the wigs on, but you also have to take the wigs off and you have to set them and put them away for the next day. So when you're in theater and you're working on Broadway as a hairdresser, you're usually there at least an hour and a half before the show. So if the show's at 8, you're there at 6:30. There's some shows where you have to be there 2 hours, 2.5 hours before. So that would be 8 o'clock would be a 6 o'clock or a 5:30 call. So you're there long before the show starts, and you're there usually 45 minutes to an hour after the show ends, putting everything away. Depending on the size of the show, the maintenance, what the wigs are, all of that stuff. It's different from show to show. Some shows you can block and put a couple rollers in it and you can be out in 10 minutes. Other shows you have to completely wet set wigs every night and put them in the dryer, so you'll be there for an hour. Depends on the show. So if you want to work in theater, you kind of have to be okay with having a weird work schedule. So you have to be okay with working 6 days a week. Theater is dark on Mondays. You usually will have an evening on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. You'll have matinee and evening shows Wednesdays and Saturdays. And you'll have a matinee, usually a later matinee, like a 3 instead of a 2 or a 1:30 on Sunday. So basically your time off is Sunday night, Monday all day, and then Tuesday morning and afternoon. So technically you have about 48 hours between ending your Sunday show and coming in for your Tuesday show, but it's really only one full day off. So you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with being on a complete opposite schedule than most of your friends and family / boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Personally, recently started a relationship. It's been 2 months, so congratulations to me. His name is Josh, but I'll talk about him later. But I know for us it's a little difficult because he usually works 10 to 6. But then by the time he's off of work, I have to be at work. So I usually don't see him until late at night. And like he'll come over and we'll hang out and he'll spend the night. And then we'll both get up in the morning and go to work. It's kind of difficult in that aspect. So if you're trying to date, or if your family's on if your family works 9 to 5 or all your friends work 9 to 5, then doing theater might not be the best thing for you. You also have to be okay with working holidays. Now, it depends on the company, it depends on the contract, it depends on the holiday. But there have been times where I've done a matinee on Christmas Eve, an evening performance on Christmas Day, a matinee performance on New Year's Eve, an evening performance on New Year's Day. Now, if you're working the day, so if you're working Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Easter Sunday, if you're actually working shows on those days, you do get paid over double. But you're working, and you're working on a holiday. So you have to think about that. Broadway theater doesn't really stop for anybody. They're going to pack in those 8 shows a week if they can. Also around the holiday schedule, they like to do several shows in a row. Usually when you're on Broadway, you're on an 8-show week schedule. So that means Tuesday through Sunday, 8 performances. But when you get into the holidays, you start having random Thursday or Fridays off. You start having 15 or 16 shows in a row without a break because of the way the holidays are set up. So you have to think about that as well. As glamorous and as fun as being a Broadway or theatrical hairdresser may sound to all of you guys, it's a lot of work, and you're constantly working, you're constantly moving with overtime from day work or extended calls and all of that. You make decent money, but you run the risk of kind of being antisocial and kind of not having a life because you're opposite of everybody else. There was a time where I had a day job. I was at Dry Bar from 7 in the morning to 4 o'clock p.m. And then I was doing shows after that. So I was working 7 days a week. I was working Sunday through Sunday, 7 days a week. Dry Bar Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Broadway shows the evenings, Sundays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays for matinee. So I was working 7 days a week at one point in my life, and that was nuts. And I would never want to do that again or wish that upon anybody. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do to pay your bills. So I guess all I'm trying to say is that if you do want to explore becoming a union hairdresser, moving more into theater and all of that, I would suggest practice. I have multiple tutorials on here about how to wash, steam, reset wigs, As I said before, I'm not going to do as many styling tutorials now because that's stuff that I make money from. I will do a couple more in the future when I can figure out other things to do that aren't going to reveal all of my techniques and secrets. Like I said, if you want to explore this and you want to start doing this, I just have to tell you guys to practice. So buy wigs that are on sale. Go to the sale section at the wig store, see what's 10 or 15 bucks. If it's long and scraggly and the ends are kind of puffy, I have tutorials to show you guys how to fix that. If it's too thin and it's stringy, buy some more hair. I have tutorials on how to add hair. It's all about practice and figuring out your ways and your techniques to do things. So once you have the wig skills down, you can roller set, you can style, you can do retro vintage styling, no problem. There are people that have just moved from salon to Broadway. It's very rare for that jump to happen, and it's usually a show needs somebody last minute. Someone had a heart attack, someone's in the hospital, somebody died. They need somebody at 5 o'clock and it's 4 o'clock. They need a hairdresser they need a body in a spot, and they need to be a hairdresser. So sometimes salon people come into Broadway as hairdressers and it just happens like that. It's really rare, and don't expect that to happen. I want to start doing more theatrical stuff. Reach out to community theaters, reach out to regional theaters, reach out to high schools in your area. Most of the time they probably won't be able to pay you, but offer your services maybe for exchange, for maybe an ad in the program, or free tickets for your family, or something. Like, donate your time, try to do an exchange for your time to help out so you can get credits on your resume, you can get theatrical experience on your resume. If you're able to, do a summer stock. Go to a regional theater and, be a hairdresser, be their wig designer. Get that experience, build up your resume, build up your portfolio before you try to make it big. Interested in doing regional gigs, there's multiple websites where you can find stuff like that. You can use playbill.com, backstagejobs.com. Backstage.com occasionally has technical stuff on it, but mainly Backstage Jobs and Playbill have the best listings for technical backstage people. To have great time management skills, because they're going to give you 25 wigs and you have to touch up and unblock those 25 wigs in 45 minutes before the show. So you have to learn how to time manage, you have to learn how to problem solve, you have to learn how to prioritize. If a wig is looking a little nuts, but this wig looks worse, take the one that looks worse and redo it. Let that one look a little nuts, maybe hit it with a curling iron if you can, touch it up later if you can. You have to learn how to prioritize and do so in a timely fashion. Once you have the styling experience, once you have the theatrical experience, then just paper Broadway with your resume. That's what I do. When I need a job, I just go around, I print off 12 copies, I go to each theater and I drop off a resume and a cover letter at the theater for the hair department. A lot of people say, oh, just talk to the doorman and see if you can go down to the hair department and say hi. I've talked to supervisors about that. Most supervisors are okay with that because then they actually get to meet you face to face. But I've had other supervisors and myself kind of don't like that because you're kind of imposing, like you're showing up at somebody's job and you're like, hi, my name's Bobby, I'm here, I'd love to be a hair swing for you guys. To me, that's a little too eager, and especially because you don't know what the hairdresser's doing. You don't know what the supervisor's doing. They could be in the middle of a haircut. They could be in the middle of a fitting. They could be in the middle of washing and setting something that needs to be on stage in an hour. You never know. So personally, I like to leave my cover letter and my resume with the doorman and say, hey, can you give this to blah, 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 the hair supervisor? And always make sure your number and your contact information's on there. Most places won't get back to you for months, if they ever do. I've had people, I've sent resumes to people for years until they finally got around to hiring me. It just depends on if they need anybody, what's going on, what show it is, etc., etc., etc. Never take any of it personally or anything. The sky's the limit. So if you're okay with the long hours, if you're okay with the weird schedule, if you're okay with working 6 days a week and working holidays, if you're okay with being in a dark, dingy basement without cell service for hours on end, then working on Broadway as a hairdresser might be for you. And if it's not, that's fine. There's a reason why not everyone is a Broadway hairdresser, and there's a reason why some people are in salons, and some people do editorial, and some people do fashion. It's just what fits us and what fits our skill set. So, yeah, thank you guys again for watching. I hope that this video helped you guys a little bit. I hope I answered some questions about getting started, how I got my start, how you guys can go into that kind of aspect of theater as well. So yeah, thank you guys again for watching. I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe, and share. Be sure to check out bobbypins.com. I just restocked some old favorite wigs, and I'm going to have some new wigs posted this weekend. I also still have my brush set, my stands. I have tons of canvas blocks in stock right now. I have 2 sizes I'm low on, but I have more coming in. So yeah, be sure to check out bobbypins.com so you guys can have your own little fun wig projects at home. Again, apologies for this video being so late. I am sorry. My life is nuts. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Email me at info@bobbypins.com if you guys have any questions. Be sure to follow me on all the fun social media crap, and I'll see you guys next week for another Wiggy Weavy Wednesday. Thanks.